I'm one of your hosts, David Gilliland, and we have the privilege of having Jeff Badu on the call with us. And we are just excited. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you for having me, David. Appreciate that.
We just love talking with owners of seven-figure businesses who are in the trenches with us. So to kind of get started, I just want to hear, how did you get started with your business? Just tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate that question, David. So I was just going to real quick my backstory and then leading into the journey. So I was born and raised in Ghana and ultimately came to the U.S. when I was 8 years old. And fast forward, I attended the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, where I received my bachelor's degree in accounting as well as my master's degree in accounting. And while I was there, I was interning and working at PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, which at the time was one of the top two typically accounting firms, public accounting firms in the world. And so I got a chance to learn a lot of professional experience, professional know-how, professional client service, things of that nature. But while I was in college, I was also building my own business plan, which fast forward to, basically now, we now have a tax firm, a CPA firm known as Badu Tax Services, LLC, which does tax preparation, tax planning, and tax representation for individuals and businesses across all 50 states in the U.S. And we also have clients that are based in over 25 countries at the moment. Basically, what we do is we help clients, save money on taxes, create wealth, multiply their wealth. And overall, that company has morphed into other companies, including we have Badu Life and Health Solutions LLC, for example, which is more of our life and health insurance agency. We have Badu Investments LLC, which is a real estate investment company. And then we have a nonprofit known as the Badu Foundation, where we teach financial literacy to the communities, primarily to the youth. And lastly, my purpose in life is to inspire and support the super hungry to take hold of infinite resources in order to create an abundant lifestyle.
I love that, Jeff. I love that. I love hearing your purpose and what drives you. Tell me a little bit, because all that just sounds beautiful and lovely. But the journey's a little different, isn't it? As we kind of move down the path.
Absolutely.
As you split off, you started to grow this business and you got to 2, 4, 6 people. What started to happen as you bridged and started to get into that 10 plus arena?
Yeah, definitely. So when we started back in 2016, it was just me. Right? It was a very, very solo shop, and didn't pick up my first client until November of 2016. I remember it was a $300 check from a client who's still a client to this day, by the way. We still have a legacy client. It was a $300 check, tax planning client. Ended up saving him $100,000 in taxes through a few tax strategies. And so that was just me basically at the time. In 2016, we made $900 in revenue, right? And that was just solo me. Now, I did have a friend who basically joined the firm. He said, basically, I went to college with him, was on the same board, NABA Chicago, right, or NABA UIUC, National Association of Black Accountants, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign chapter. And basically, he joined the firm and said, "Hey, I see what you're about to do." So he saw my vision in advance, and he said, "I want to become a part of this. Teach me taxes, right? Teach me how to do taxes," because he didn't know. He is a CPA as well, but he didn't know a whole lot about taxes. And he eventually wanted to branch off into his own firm or into his own, basically, tax professional. At the time, he was working for a wealth management company. And yeah, he basically, when I envisioned the firm, I literally envisioned it to just be me, where I would have 150 clients who basically were paying, let's say, $100, basically somewhere in that tune. Pretty much, let's just say that in my first year, how I envisioned the firm is that I would have a limited amount of clients paying X amount of dollars, so that I would be comfortably making 6 figures every single year. Right? That was like the vision at the time. And thank God for expanded vision, infinite expansion. When he joined, it really opened my mind and saying, okay, well, why can't we have other people join the firm as well? So it was literally one person in 2016. Then right at the end of 2016, leading into 2017, he joined. And that year we made a decent amount of revenue. This is when we went up to 50,000 in revenue. So our second year we went from $900 to 56,000 in revenue in the second year. And this individual was a part of the firm at the time too, and he was able to bring in, I think it was about 30 clients. He was able to bring in his own clients. So we had a model where people can bring in their own clients, right? So he was the first one to do it, and he brought in 30 clients of his own. I said, okay, this can work. And then at the end of 2017, another friend, who also part of NABA, reached out to me. This was Christmas Day, and he basically was going through some personal issues at the time. He's still with this firm today. He's our COO, Chief Operating Officer. But he was going through some personal matters, and he saw what I was doing, saw the success. He saw the Facebook posts, the radio shows, things of that nature. And he said, you know what? I want to join as well. Right? I see what you're doing. He drove all the way from the south suburbs of Chicago to north side of Chicago. It's about an hour and a half, hour, let's say, depending on how fast you drive. You probably make it here in an hour. And mind you, this was during snow, right? This is when it was snowy outside in Chicago, brutal winter. And he drove down and he brought his resume, nice professional dress. He said, I want to join what you're doing. And I said, sure, why not? I'm a sure why not type of guy. And for him, he brought in 75 clients that year, or actually 2018, because 2017 Christmas was when he joined, but then 2018 was his first full year. And I said, you know what, this model can work. And so that's when we expanded the team to about 5 more people, where they were getting their own clients, their own business. Now, fast forward to today, we have since adjusted the model just a little bit, where we're now supplying our team with clients. They provide the services, they get paid a commission, a rate, and that allows myself to be out of the servicing, like the tax preparation servicing business. And now we have a team of 25 people across 7 different countries. We're 100% remote, 100% virtual. I mean, you got to learn how to master growing a team, right? How to master growing and developing a team. And thank God for a business coach that I met in 2018 that allowed me to really learn how to grow and scale the team to where we are today. Because if you can't manage, let's say, 2 people, there's no way you'll be able to manage 25 people. I'm more than happy to share more about that. But let's just say that we went from a 1-person shop to now a 25-person team, and we're continuing to grow and scale from there ultimately.
Yeah, I do want to dive into that a little bit. You threw a cue out there. You said, thank God I ran into a business coach. What was going on that it was so tough or so whatever that you're like, I got to change? Tell me what was happening, and then what brought the change about. How did this coach help you? So let's talk about lay the landscape first there.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, David. So 2018 was when we scaled to 6 figures of revenue. That's when we had 100, and I believe it was 182,000 revenue that year. And yeah, I mean, imagine, right? We basically we over tripled our revenue. We grew almost 4 times in revenue, from 56,000 in 2017 to 180K plus in 2018. So that's a big year. But guess what? What a lot of people didn't know is that I was burnt out that year. That was the year where, and even 2017 too, I was staying up during tax season until 2 a.m. every night doing taxes. I would take some naps throughout the day, right? Between 5 to 7 p.m., I would take a nap. And then from 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., I'll be doing taxes. Now, it wasn't quite a one-man shop, but on the servicing of my client side, though, I was a one-man shop. And I was servicing my own clients, right? I didn't have anybody else helping on that side. Remember, there was 2 business model at the time. There was a servicing of internal clients, and then there was servicing of external, meaning people who brought in their own clients. So they were taking care of business on that side on their own. Excuse me. And then at the end of tax season, and I was so burnt out, I was sleep deprived. You can tell that I was tired, mentally fatigued. And I was ready to give up. I was ready to basically leave the firm and go back to what I was doing and being at a firm like PwC, maybe somebody more, toned down in terms of workload, in terms of pressure, things of that nature. Right. All praise to PwC. They taught me a lot, met a lot of great people. Still have a great relationship with them. But, it's a pressure packed environment. It's high energy, high intensity. You cannot be a low performer over there. And so it's high performance every single day, every single day. So I probably would have toned it down just a little bit. Somebody that's more mid tier, maybe like a regional, right, CPA firm that's doing taxes, things of that nature. But yeah, I was burnt out. And then I met my business coach. So it's actually Rick and Monique Justice, Rick and Monique Justice from the King and Justice team. And in 2018, right after tax season, I met them. It was a fellow on their team that reached out to me on LinkedIn. And he said, "Yeah, how's tax season?" He kept reaching out to me every year. He's like, "How's tax season? How's everything going?" And at the right time, I said, "You know what? Tax season went horrible. I was burnt out. I was fed up, ready to give up on a firm." And he said, "Well, let me introduce you to the coaching." And when I first met Rick and Monique Justice, it was a great conversation, but honestly, I turned it down. And it took me getting cursed out, and they're open to me sharing this publicly, but it took me getting cursed out to say, you know what, let me humble myself, let me go out and hire a business coach, a paid business coach, right? Let me add that, a paid business coach. And so basically that year, they taught me the 12 practices of life and the 12 practices of business. One of the 12 practices is around team and growing and scaling the team. And they said, okay, well, how about this? You have your current COO who joined 2017, and then you also have another fellow. Well, why not divvy the tax returns, some of them off your plate to them, so that they can do a hybrid? They do their own work on their own clients, 100%, but then they also work with your clients because they usually have some capacity to do the returns. So yeah, sure, why not? Let's test out the model. It worked out beautifully. I still got a chance to do the final reviews of the returns. And it allowed my Saturdays the next year, 2019, to be from working 10 hours on a Saturday, where clients would be coming in person and doing their taxes, to literally me being able to go out and do real estate viewings, like just seeing properties on a Saturday, while on my phone, I'm able to quickly scan through and review return and say, yes, this looks good. Hey, let's send it back to the reviewer or the preparer for a review. So things got a lot more calm. I went from working 80 hours a week to 60, right? It's not the most ideal, but to go from 80 to 60, that's a transition. And let me just give you some insight. I'm at 21 hours on average every week for the past few years. Right? So later down the journey, I went from 60 to 21. My goal for next year is 20, solid 20. But basically, I went from 80 hours to 60 hours because I delegated my return responsibility to them. And also, we hired a data entry team that year from India. Right? We have an India team. And I hired my first assistant in the Philippines that year, too. So clearly, there was delegation. There were a lot of things that were happening as well. But overall, that business coach taught me to not do it all. Basically, don't do it all yourself. Delegate, divvy it up, share responsibilities with others. And if somebody can do something 80%, at least 80% as good as you can, delegate it to them. Eventually, they'll be 100%. And in most cases, they'll become even better than you at that thing. But make sure you know how to do it first before you delegate it to somebody else, because you need to monitor it. You need to have the right oversight. And also shout out to the book, The 4 Hour Work Week, which taught me how to hire my first assistant and train that assistant to basically do the things that I need them to do. And so that's a little bit about that journey in terms of hiring a business coach in 2018.
Well, you just unpacked, you gave us a glimpse into, I don't even think you got to unpack it for us, but a glimpse into 4 or 5 nuggets right through there, right? I mean, you talked about, how do I start handing stuff off to a team, not just to like partners, all of us doing the same thing, but that transition to actually getting a team to help. That was beautiful. Learning to delegate. If you think they can do 80%, give it to them. right? Give it to them. But in that delegation process, I want to ask, like, did you ever get burned? Did you ever get burned in any of your delegating? Did you have to learn some lessons like, oh, this was a key to better delegate?
Yeah, definitely. I learned quite a few lessons. The 4 hour work week should have taught me better, right? Or I should have known better from the book. But number one, when you delegate to somebody, please make sure they're capable of doing that thing you're delegating to them, right? Make sure they are not necessarily a master of that form or that skill, but they know the skill. Number two, have clear, very clear instructions and possibly make them recite those instructions. Ask them to recite those instructions back to you or recite their understanding of the instructions back to you. Because sometimes you think you're communicating something, but others are hearing. Right? Communication is a two-way street. There's basically the sender and there's the receiver. Sometimes the sender thinks they're sending something, but the receiver is receiving something completely different. So just make sure there's basically understanding of the instructions and the communication. Number three, set a deadline. Always set a deadline. I've definitely been burned there before, where an assistant was spending 3 hours on something that should have took 1 hour, and it was because they were making a silly mistake in that process. Last but not least, it is to ensure that you monitor, right? Monitor, have status checkpoints. So, maybe 30 minutes into the task, ask, hey, how's everything going? Maybe they haven't even started because they didn't know the deadline was today, right? So it's silly things, but basically you want to make sure they're skilled at that task. Number two, ensure you have clear and concise instructions that are understood. Number three, you set a deadline. Number four, you consistently monitor, have some oversight. I hate that word, but just have some, basically being able to monitor what they're doing, monitor progress. It's called to monitor the progress of what it is they're doing. And yes, I have been not necessarily burnt per se, but misunderstood with certain tasks before.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you wrap that up just so concise, and I love that. Thanks for sharing that with the listeners. Some of us have to get better at the delegating side, right, and get
Yes,
clear
sir.
about it. And we feel like we're just hiring someone, putting them in a role, and they're failing. We're pulling in another person, and they're leaving, and may not have a process built to ensure solid delegation. You
Absolutely.
passed, like, I consider that some of the key things that need to happen along that journey between 6 and a dozen people. If you don't figure that out, I mean, you're shot, right? You've got to get that down. And but then you kept growing, and you said right at the beginning of the call, I didn't even ask for it, but you leaned right into it. You're like, my purpose is. Why don't you say your purpose one more time of your life, your business?
Absolutely. So my purpose in life is to inspire and support the super hungry to take hold of infinite resources in order to create an abundant lifestyle.
I love
And my
that.
coaches, Rick and Monique Justice, actually went through an intensive 12-hour purpose day experience where we sat down, went through different life journey, right, obstacles, and at the end of the day, we were able to come up with an exact purpose in one sentence.
Uh, we do a similar exercise with everyone we've ever worked with. And tell me, what has that done for your ability to expand from that 10 to now 30 people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing is set a clear path. Right, every day I wake up, I know exactly why I'm doing what it is that I'm doing, and I'm able, since I understand it, I'm able to tell others on my team about that. So every day we have a morning huddle where we recite the purpose, mission, vision, the core values of the firm, and so everybody gets to see and hear that purpose every single day, and allows us to have a clear path forward, allows us to understand why we're doing something. I feel like if somebody doesn't understand why they're doing something, they probably won't do it as good as they should be doing it, or as good as they can do it. So having a why is always important to seeing a clear path forward and allows everybody to have something to buy in on, have a common goal, a common purpose. And it's allowed us to scale in terms of everybody understanding why what we're doing and when somebody has a sense of purpose, even if it's not their own purpose, but it's a part of a bigger purpose, then it allows better performance, better retention, and better client servicing as well.
I love that. Couldn't agree more. And the way that you pulled that together for people is awesome. For listeners, if many of you have not worked with a lot of accounting firms, I want you to know how unique Jeff and his team are in the accounting space. To understand the power of vision, purpose, core values, mission goals, and to focus on it, to drive towards it, to celebrate around it on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis. That's visionary leadership inside of an accounting firm. You are literally one in a million, Jeff, as far as in that accounting space. And I just applaud you. What a great example. But it applies to all of us. I only poke at the accounting, and don't want to make fun of you, Jeff, but generally the numbers, accountants look in a rearview mirror, right? They're looking at numbers that happened last month, last quarter. That's how they look at the world. You're not. You're looking way out into the future, and you're allowing your team to do the same while being informed about the performance of the past. You're building something, outstanding, something that's going to change the world. I love that. Absolutely love it. So now you getting that vision out of your head and into the minds and heart of your team, and then being able to actually hire and build a team around that vision was kind of the key to success in a lot of ways, to go from 20 or to go from these 10, 12 employees to 30 where you are now. You're probably running into new things now. What are you playing with at this moment? What are the challenges you're wrestling with now for those who are closer to your size and that 30 plus team?
Yeah, that's a great question, David. So some of the challenges we're going through right now is teaching our team how to manage a team. So we're building teams for teams, and then also capacity planning, right? How to delegate the right things to the right people and make sure they don't get burnt out. We're basically going through some just making sure everybody is aligned, right? Comfortable working with each other, teamwork aspect. Just basically it's more a cultural thing, right? Just everybody understanding the culture, being comfortable in that environment, being comfortable in the culture. And also everyone has their own opinion about how certain things should be done. So just learning to listen to them, but not always being so like, you don't want to suck up to people in terms of letting them run your organization. You still want to run your own organization, but being receptive to feedback, being receptive to opportunities, things of that nature. So it's more cultural than anything, and also capacity planning, and just making sure the team is like a championship team. You want to make sure the team is comfortable around each other.
Yeah, I love that. That next place to shift gears is right around this time, right? It's how do I become a leader of leaders? And how do I help my team become the leaders I became back then, right? To keep that culture alive, persistent, and growing. I like to look at that director and leader of leaders. It has a lot more listening than telling, right? Like you were saying, right? How do we listen? Because they've got to learn to solve problems now. We just need to direct them to solve the problems the right direction and solve the right problems, right? Just kind of keep guiding a little, right? How do you do that? Sometimes you get some pretty strong-willed people, and maybe you've even had one or two that have come through that they look like they were great, and they are. They're very capable, but culturally speaking, they're a bit of a mismatch. Something was off, and they're kind of pulling another direction. You ever have anything like that happen in your business as you've been growing?
Oh yeah, you get those.
What do you do with them?
Yeah, you get those with strong personalities, strong ego, strong pride. And for those who understand DISC, right, those are typically the D's on the DISC assessments. Honestly, I've learned to listen to them, to always listen, always hear them out. And what I force them to do, though, is make sure they write their ideas down, put things in proposal format, put things in writing. And that sometimes, not that it deters them from fully proposing, but it basically forces them to think deeply about what it is they're proposing and if it benefits everybody for the greater good or if it's just them, right? So what if somebody's looking to propose something, I usually require one thing. Write it down, give me the outline of it, the overview. Write down the pros, but also write down the cons of it, right? And just this allows me to see if you've truly thought this thing through or if you're thinking about it just in your benefit. And so oftentimes, I'll listen. I'll always listen. And there are some things that they'll say that are good that we end up implementing. But later down the process, we realize it's only to really their benefit, not to everybody as a whole. That's why I like things in written format. I'm able to analyze it, dissect it. For me, I do tend to make quick decisions, but certain things, I need some time to think it through. I need a proposal. I need something to review on my own. Um, and honestly, most of those folks are no longer with the firm. Like the strong ego, strong pride, strong personalities, they're no longer with the firm because they were out really for their own best interest only, not for the firm's best interest. But at the end of the day, to balance that, I mean, you have to listen no matter what. Set up private meetings with them where you can do a Zoom and allow them to share what they think, but ask them to put it in written format so that you can go back to it, read it, understand it, send it, have your board of advisors, your board of directors review it as well. That's another thing I always tell them is I don't make decisions alone. I usually need my support team to review it and see if it makes sense. So that's how I would recommend going about those folks that have such strong opinions about how something should be done, but of course they're not the owner of the firm and they don't see things from a high level.
Oh, what a gem. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for so many little nuggets, so many things. And I think many of us listening have experienced some of this in the daily, right? It's just what we run into. I love that written proposal idea, and I hadn't used
Absolutely.
it before. And I was like,
Yes,
that's
sir.
a gem. I'm putting that one into my business now. So
There you
thanks, Jeff,
go.
for that for me
No
on
problem.
this call.
Yes,
Um,
sir. Yes,
you
sir.
know, you've normally at this point I'd ask for what are your insights? Give us some nuggets, but you've just filled the whole call with nuggets and insights. And so, uh, what if you give us just a little insight under the hood for the magic that your business can do for businesses like ours? Can you give us like one little, hey, here's a tax strategy we ought to be thinking about? A lot of times we're just thinking, I just got to get through my taxes. But it's
Hmm.
now that we think about strategies to put in place so we win when we do our taxes
Absolutely.
next year, right? So tell us some things that we should think about, how we should get things organized or bring people on board. Give us a couple minutes, something to take away on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say a few things to keep in mind. Number one, as a business owner, you are allowed to treat your life basically as a business. So meaning you can claim business deductions, also known as tax write-offs. So your cell phone, clothing, trips, travel, right, vacations, car. So you can claim those things as a business deduction. Things that you would have every day typically been claiming more as personal, like these are my personal budget items. You can all of a sudden flip them into business budget items, business deductions. And one, there's two quick things I want everybody to understand. Number one, if you can't write it off, you probably shouldn't buy it to begin with. So a rule of thumb for buying something, paying for something, if you cannot deduct it as a business expense, you probably shouldn't be buying it to begin with because it's probably not the best investment. Right now, of course, there's certain things like medical, which we have to, right? So there's certain exceptions. But in general, if it's a discretionary item, something you have the option to buy and you cannot write it off, just don't buy it, right? In my opinion. The second thing is the tax code was created for you, not against you, if you are a business owner and or a real estate investor. And so understand that the tax code, all the thousands of pages that were written were created for you to save money on taxes, not the other way around. So it's okay to write things off, claim business deductions, make sure you have a tracking software like QuickBooks. And one powerful asset I recommend you add to your portfolio if you haven't already, or you want to add more of, is rental real estate. Because once you have a certain amount of rental properties, we can potentially declare you as what we call a real estate professional. And that allows you to fully leverage a tax deduction, the biggest deduction in the tax code, known as depreciation, which basically allows you to claim a certain percentage, let's say 20% of the property's purchase price, as a tax deduction against your other source of income, like your business income, in year one of owning that property, right? So let's just say you have 200,000 in net business profit, and you take some of that and you buy a $1 million rental property. We can literally claim a tax deduction known as depreciation of 200,000 on the rental property and leverage that as depreciation deduction. So your 200,000 in profit minus 200,000 in depreciation is zero. And you've effectively eliminated the taxes, income taxes at least. And you can do this every single year for as long as you keep buying at least one rental property every single year.
How many houses do you have to have for this?
So honestly, it's really, I mean, there's hard and fast rules within the tax code. For example, 750 hours or more in real estate activities, and then real estate has to be sort of your primary, not necessarily primary income, but your primary time that you spend. There is some flexibility around that, and so I usually say when you get to three rental properties or you own a very large apartment building, then we should definitely have a conversation to potentially claiming that real estate professional status. And so three or more is typically our go-to, but technically speaking, there are rules, to it. But let's just say let's definitely have some conversations to see if you in fact do qualify as a real estate professional, because there's a lot of people that do qualify that don't think they qualify, but they do in fact qualify for that status.
All right. I love that, because I'm going to need to be talking with you. How do we get in touch with you if we want to work with your great firm, Jeff?
Absolutely. Thank you for that, David. And thank you for having me on this talk today. It's always an honor and a blessing to speak to a group of like-minded people. So the best way is you can feel free to call our office phone, which is 773-819-5675. That's 773-819-5675. You can go to our firm website, badutaxservices.com. That's badutaxservices.com, BADU taxservices.com. And you can quickly, right, you can actually call us directly on the website, or you can complete a 1 minute, just a 1 minute client intake questionnaire that allows us to get to better understand you and your business so that we can basically, offer the best service to you and your organization. So 773-819-5675 is how to contact us by phone. And then on our website, badutaxservices.com, BADU tax services with an S.com. All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yes,
that wraps up today's episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we explore the ins and outs of the seven-figure journey. Jeff Badu, thank you for being a guest on our show today. We loved having you on this show. For all of you listening in, I hope you will share, do all the things to make this episode more available to all the other seven-figure business owners out there. Keep striving, keep learning, keep caring, and keep pushing towards your goals. Until next time.